Hello, my lovely quilters, and it's time for another mini masterclass. This is Dr. Donna Smith, and I am going to show you how to crop multiple areas in an edge-to-edge design. Okay, so for today, we are going to go through how to crop out a couple of, let's say, designs on our quilt that we do not want our edge-to-edge to quilt over. So what I have already done my two corner for my edge-to-edge, right? So I've got my whole quilt. My quilt 60 by, let's say, 85. And so what I'm going to go ahead and do, I am going to go in to make sure I'm on the area tab. And now I have my area over in the right hand side. I have the area. It is 60 wide, so that's what I want. And now I'm going to go ahead and put my height, which my height is, all I have to do is highlight that, and then I can set it to 85. Now, if there's shrinkage and stuff going on, then we always like to add a couple more inches. So I'm just going to go ahead and set it at 88 inches instead of 85 because I would rather be too long because I know I can crop that off than I would be if I wanted it, than I would be if I was too short. Then what do I do? There's a way to figure it out, but that's for another lesson. So right now I want to go into modify, and I'm going to go into repeat. Sorry. I'm going to go ahead and go into repeat. I'm going to come down on the little house. I'm going to refresh so I can see everything on my screen. I have my grid lines on, and I'm not really sure I want them on for now. I'm going to just turn them off. On the left-hand side, you see the grids. It's highlighted. I'm just going to turn them off. I personally prefer not to have it on there unless I am actually measuring and I'm trying to do some designing or something. Right now, I'm not worried about designing because this is an edge-to-edge with a little bit of cropping out. So now I just want to get my edge-to-edge in my whole quilt. So I'm going to come over here into the right-hand side, make sure my horizontal is, and I'm going to go ahead and fill. I know that's not exactly what I want to do, so I'm going to go ahead and put in an extra one right there. And then I'm going to come into vertical, and I'm going to put an extra one there. Now, I can, because it's right here and it's too big, I can go back over to my area, and I can actually put my 85 there because it's going to be a little bit smaller now. So make sure that I do 85. And now I can come back in here and go back over to the repeat, and let's see if I take one off, and I'm still not there. So I can still do this, right? And so what I want to do is make sure that I pull this down. I'm going to have plenty to crop off, so I'm not worried about this at all. So I'm going to go ahead and come in to modify and align because I want it to start here in this square right up at the top. So if you come down a little bit, see right here at that top, I want this to line up with the top left-hand side of my area. So I'm going to go ahead and go left, make sure that we're aligned over here, and then I'm going to, on vertical, I'm going to go top. Now it's pushed it down, okay? I can scroll up just a little bit, make it a little bit bigger. And let's see if refresh will make it a little bit bigger. It will. And now I've got my area set. So what do we have to do? We're going to come back over to repeat. I don't have horizontal and P to P. So I want to make sure that my points are snapped together. So once I know that my points are snapped together, because I did my point to point right over on the right hand side underneath horizontal, point to point. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go ahead and baseline because I like it. It's set up just fine. So now I baseline, and now all of my points, this is one big design. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I think everything is up to par. This lines up with the side of my quilt just like I want it. And I'm right at that top, so I'm not going to run into the bar over on the top. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch out this first row. So once I go I'm going to go ahead and stitch everything out. Now remember, if you've watched several of my videos, I actually have a pause delay set on this, and that's another lesson. If you want to know about the pause delay, then let me know and I will show you how to do that. So we're just going to sit here and watch this stitch out because I want to get to the end of this row. Okay, so now I have advanced my quilt. Everything is set the way it's supposed to be. I'm going to zoom, come up here, and then I'm going to go ahead and zoom right in here so we can kind of get a better view. So I'm getting ready to stitch my next row. I went ahead and I canceled out of everything, so once I get it so I can base down my sides and stuff like that. I don't necessarily have to do that. But for this exercise, I went ahead and canceled everything out, and I'm going to zoom just a little bit more, and that's probably a little too much. So let's back off just a little bit. Okay, so this is where I want to be. So I'm going to go ahead and now I have a cropping to do. So I want to go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and baseline, and I'm going to move my machine in the exact spot where I want to actually start cropping out. So I have, on my quilt top, I have a couple of borders right here, and I'm going to move over to about right here. I'm estimating this point because I don't actually have my quilt behind my picture. If I wanted to actually do this on Designer, then I could pull the backdrop in and I could see my quilt. Since right now I'm just kind of estimating because I just want to show you how to do this. So if you put, let's say you put your needle right in the center of the part where you want to crop out, then you have a starting point. So now I'm going to go ahead and come over to File, Design, and I'm going to open. For this exercise, I really want to do an oval shape. I could go ahead and I could do a multi-point and block out the entire square, but I want to give a little bit more interest. So what I'm going to do is come over to Pro Stitcher Designs. You have Handy Quilter, you will have the HQ. If you have Baby Lock, you have the BL. And one of you who has the Genoma, you need to tell me what that shows like on yours. Right now I'm going to go ahead and go to blocks, and you can see I have practice. Don't worry about that one because that is extra. You do not have Donna's practice on there. But I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to look down, and I'm going to find the block here that is actual an oval. Right here, this oval block, that's the one I want. So I'm going to tap it open, and it's going to pull it right there. What this does is it puts my edge-to-edge design in the background and has it gray. And so this right here is now where my design is. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to come over here. With your finger, you can move it to that spot and put it somewhat in the center. Now, I'm only doing this right now because I know I need to resize that oval right there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to resize it. So the shape that I have, it's 5 inches. It's actually the letters I have that I'm wanting to crop out around it, or it doesn't have to be letters. It could be anything you want to crop out of this. So I have actually a name that I want to crop out. The size of those names are 4.5, 4.5 inches by 2. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do 5. My square is an 8 by 8. So 5 fits that perfectly. I'm going to enter, and that changes my width to 5. And then my height on this little square, this name, it's actually a 2 inches is the height of that. Well, I'm okay with that, but I think I want to move it just a little bit more because I want to give it a little bit more interest. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to change it to 2 3/4. So that just makes it just a little bit better. It makes it a little bit different kind of shape. Now, this is where I want it. I'm looking around and I think this will work. And if I move my machine over to the side of this, that's where that is perfectly where it's going to miss my words, and my words is still in the center. Now I can move down and it's still in the center. If I go up, it's still in the center. And if I move it side, if I need to move this at all to readjust, then what I can do is I can just come up here to select, and I can make sure that I just tap on that one, and it's still black, and so it's still dark, so I can shuffle this just slightly and move it around. Now I think it's in the perfect position. So now what I'm going to do is come up to area. And we see this RB area. Do you know what that means? That means it's a rubber band. So what I'm going to do is take and I'm going to rubber band this design right here. So I'm just going to click one time on it. Now I've got that rubber band on top of that design. Now what I want to do is come over to File, and I'm going to close. Do not clear all. Just close, and I'm going to close my selected. Now there's my area right there. I'm going to zoom up just a little bit just so you can see what we're talking about. There's my area right there. So now if I come over here and I just select and I just very lightly tap on my edge-to-edge design, then make it black again, then I can come in here and I can say, let's modify, let's crop, right? And there's my area. And now I'm going to crop on the inside because I don't want any of this on the inside to be stitched. So I'm going to crop on the inside. Now, what I have is I have several jumps. I can close my edges and it will just stitch around whenever the bubbles come. And this is actually the circle meander. And so when you come and you're stitching, what it'll do is it will just stitch around instead of jumping over, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and close my edges. I'm okay with that. If you don't want it to do that, then don't close your edge and you just clip as you go around, okay? So there is going to be some thread build up right here, it looks like, and there is one jump that we're going to have to deal with. It. We don't have a choice. It's fine. So we'll just deal with that one jump. It may, depending on, I think we have 2 inches here. What did I put? Almost 3 inches. So our default, it will probably go ahead and jump over to that point and just end up anyway. But that's okay. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and baseline this because I want to set this in spot right here. I'm going to baseline. So now when I scroll down and get back to refresh, I've cropped out this area. And so now when I go to resume my quilting of this, then I need to make sure, since I canceled everything out, I need to make sure that this starting point is actually down here because I'm on my second row. So in order to do that, I'm going to Pro Stitcher, New Start and End, and then on the right hand side, I'm just going to come down beneath the words jump and click one time. And now I'm on my second row. Okay, and now I can run, and let's go ahead and get it run. Get it started there, run, and resume. Clip your threads, resume if you have that default, if you've reset your default. And now it's just going to go. And we'll speed this up a little bit. And see, it just automatically jumped. I didn't actually have to clip threads and move the machine or anything like that. It automatically did it. So it's within the 6-inch default. So now what I'll have to do is go back in and clip those threads. And that's pretty easy to do. And so that's how you do that. I'm going to go ahead and stop this. And I'm going to go to my next crop, okay? Okay, so now I have advanced and I'm actually quilting out my last row. And so, well, let's get this up here so my crosshairs is in the right spot, okay? So now I have this at the same spot, and I'm going to put this one in the center. So I'm going to go ahead and clear my area because I want to go through this again. You can transform, you can move your area if you wanted to, you can save your area if you like that area. And I'm going to go ahead and go back over to File, Design, and since I opened up that block right there, I am going to just pull it back up. So now I'm going to just move this over, well, not that one, get that little guy again and get him. You got to be careful with your fingers. If you have a stylus, it's much, much better. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move him probably about the center of the quilt. And in order to do that, let's go ahead and get back in to about the center of, or you can do the left-hand side of your words again, or whatever it is that you do not want to stitch over. So now I can come back up to select, and I can move this. There we go. You got to be careful where you put your finger, because if your edge-to-edge design turns black, then you will move it. And so you don't want to move it, right? So now I'm going to look at this, and now my words. I know that my words are pretty big size. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to modify, and I'm going to resize my circle. Okay. So now I'm going to resize my circle, and my design is a 6.5 by 4.5. So if I do my 6.5, so if I do 6.5, I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to go ahead and go to 7, just in case I don't align it just right. I want it just a little bit bigger than what it is. So my square is an 8 by 8. So if I go 7, I'm still going to have plenty of room. And so now I'm going to move over to the height, and I'm going to change the height. The height is 4.5. So if I make this 5, then I think that would be perfect. And that's kind of a funny shape there. And it's still an oval, but I think I'm going to go back over to my width, and I'm going to change this to 7.5. So I have a little bit of inch. Now that's that's pretty good to me. I like that. And just for fun, I'm going to go ahead and move my machine over to the left-hand side of that shape there. Make sure on my quilt that I have cleared my words. And then I'm going to move down just a little bit to make sure that I have cleared the top of it and my words are right in here where they're supposed to be. And so you just go all the way around. Just make sure that you are in the right spot. If you need to move your circle over, your oval over just a little bit, just select and make sure that you click on that. And we didn't do it, so there we go. And we can adjust it, move it over. Or if you don't want to touch it, remember that you can always reposition. So if you want to reposition, you can reposition it one side or the other, right? And so I am going to go ahead and make sure that I am about where I want to be, and just keep moving it over until you get to where you want to be. And that looks pretty good to me, and I think that's it. So I'm going to come back over and move my machine and make sure that again that I've cleared everything within this oval shape that I want to. Once I'm satisfied that this is it, now I can come up to area and I can rubber band it. Okay, now I'm going to go back over to File, and I'm going to close that selected. Okay, so now I have my edge to edge, and I have my oval area right there. So now I'm going to come back over, and I'm going to select. Just pop my finger on there. Now there's my edge to edge. It's black again. And so now I can come over to Modify and Crop. And again, I want to go inside. And that's a lot of jumps. Let's go ahead and zoom up right here. So that looked like a lot of jumps on there. So I'm going to go ahead and close my area. And now I don't even have a jump in here. This looks great. I know I'm going to have a little bit of buildup right around here. But that I'm okay with that. I just don't want my edge to edge to go over my design right inside this oval. So now I come up here, I baseline. Okay, and now let's make this a little bit smaller, and I need to get, because this is the last row, I need to go ahead and get this right here to move. Now let me tell you, if I come over and I undo, let's just undo everything. Let's say that we are actually split between that. So if I come over and I select my area and see if I can actually, whoops. Select, and I'm going to transform. I'm going to move it, right? So if you select your area and it's green, then your transform over here, your X form, will highlight, be able to, so you can highlight it. So if you want to move it, so let's just say I'm going to move it, and I'm just going to grab it. Once you get your 4, your 6, 7, 8, and then this you can resize from here if you wanted to, but since we've resized on our actual design, and this is the perfect size that we want to, this is fine. So what happens if my design is actually between these two rows? Okay, so let's just say I'm in between this row and this row, and this has kind of how it's shaped up. So I'm going to still do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and position this where it needs to be. So this row, I can't stitch it out until I crop out this little bit of piece right up here on top, right? And so now if I'm good with that. I'm going to go ahead and select this, and so now I'm going to actually crop out the bottom of this row right here, stitch up just a little bit, and then the bottom and then the top of this row here. It's the same process really. So you go ahead and baseline, and then I'm modify, and I'm going to crop, and I'm going to go ahead and do insides, and I'm going to close my edges. So now when I stitch out this row, it's only going to, of course, stitch this row out, and it will crop this top side. Okay, so let's go ahead and Pro Stitcher, and let's do new start and end, and I'm going to jump down to this spot right here. Come on down. There we go. Now I'm right there, and this is the row that I need to stitch out. And so I'm going to go ahead and baseline, and I should have baselined first before I moved my new start. So come on down. There we go. Now I can run. And so I'm going to go ahead and run. And we'll speed up a little bit until we get to that circle. Okay, now it's only just stitching out the top part of our shape here. They're cropping out of that. And that's exactly what we're expecting to see. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and finish out this row. And I will actually go ahead and advance it to the next row. Okay, I'm going to cancel it. So I went ahead and canceled out, and now I'm going to drag. And so do drag to there. Okay. And drop. Simulation. Okay, so I have finished out this row, and I went ahead and advanced, and so everything is lined up on this side. I know I have this area, and it could be serious, it could be really, really confusing, but what I'm cropping out, see this right here, I'm going to go ahead and close my area. I don't need it because I have baselined it, so I can clear my area. So now, when I aligned all of this up, my oval actually is still, it still looks really good where I need it to. It's clicked over right here, so I'm gonna go ahead and new start and jump to that next spot, and I'm going to start. And I'm going to go ahead and stop right here because we're pretty much at the end of it. So we have done that first one. Now we're doing this last row right here. And if you have to actually crop off at the end of your quilt, then all you have to do is just crop it off just like you would normally. Okay. I hope you learned something from this, and if you have any questions, let me know. That's all for now. See you next time. Bye.